Hey, my name's Julie Fei-Fan Balzer, and I'm super excited because embossing is here for the ScanNCut. So today we're going to be talking about region embossing. Region embossing is different from line embossing. So region embossing pushes out an entire area. So if you were to imagine a child stepping into sand, wet sand, and their foot would sink in, that would be region embossing. They're pushing out a whole area. Whereas if you took that child's foot and put it on a piece of paper and traced around it, that would be line embossing. So for region embossing, you're going to need a couple of things. So you're going to want a middle tack mat. That's the one with the pink stripe on it. You're going to need your embossing holder, and there are two sizes of embossing tools, okay? Then you're going to want some masking tape or artist tape, and you're also going to want some cardstock. Region embossing is really recommended to be done on cardstock and paper. You're going to need some of this adhesive sheets to go ahead and hold everything in place, and some template sheets. Now the template sheets, the adhesive sheets, the holder, the tips, all of that comes in the embossing starter kit for you. So let's go ahead and get started. There are a couple settings we have to enable in the machine in order to get started. So let me show you. From the home screen, I'm going to go ahead and choose pattern. And I have saved one of the 50 embossing designs that comes with the embossing starter kit. So I just went ahead and grabbed that. And now you'll notice I want to emboss, but I don't have the embossing enabled. So even if you've updated to the correct firmware, you still need to do this step, which is you have to go ahead to the wrench icon, and then you have to go up to page 8 to the premium functions. You're going to activate the kit activation on. Once that's on, you're going to say OK, OK again, and then magically this toolbox will have appeared, and that's how you're going to go ahead and do the embossing. So once you hit the toolbox, you'll see you can choose between line embossing and region embossing. If you'd like to hear about line embossing, please see my other video. We're going to choose region embossing, and it's going to tell you you need to do 2 steps, and you're going to say, okay, let's do the first step, which is creating the template. Now the machine is going to walk us through everything we need to do. You just keep hitting next. So it's going to tell you exactly how to do it, where you want to do it, and if you need to read any of the other directions, you just simply go to the next page. So we're going to follow these directions. So I'm going to open the dust cover, and I'm going to go ahead and load my material in. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put my cardstock down onto my mat, and I'm just going to smooth it down so it's in place. And once that's done, I'm going to take my mat and I'm going to go ahead and just load it into the machine. And then you'll see as soon as I do that, the light goes green, which means that it's ready for you to hit start. So you want to frame the image of the material, and you can see right there. You can come in a little ways, you know, it doesn't have to be totally exact, but there's my material. And then you can see if that position of the pattern is okay, then you can say okay. If it's not, you can drag it anywhere you'd like it to go. So it's going to say you want to create the template as shown on the left, and don't worry, it's going to guide you through how to do that. So you're simply going to say okay. And it's going to tell you exactly how to do it. See, unload the mat and remove the material to be embossed from the mat, okay? And then you're going to cut this template. If you want, you can save the template into the machine, wirelessly to your PC, to a USB, whatever you'd like, but you don't have to because the machine is going to remember this template, okay? So when it says cut this template, you say okay, and we're going to go ahead and use the template sheet on the mat, and we're going to do that. So as soon as I've done that, I'm able to hit next, and it will tell me to go ahead and do all these steps. So let me get that mat ready. So I'm going to go ahead and take my template sheet and place it down onto my middle tack mat. And once that's down on there, I'm just going to smooth it down with my hands to make sure it's really well adhered. And then I'm going to go ahead and load it into the machine. So I'm going to go ahead and load in the mat, which has the template material on it. And then I'm going to use the scanner button to make sure that I'm actually placing the template correctly. So you can see it fits perfectly in the area that I have there, so it's good to go. So once I'm happy with it, I'm simply going to say okay. And now I want to cut it. However, there are some recommended settings that I just want to point out. which is the cut speed of 1, a cut pressure of 4, and the blade at a 4 is just about where the recommended settings are for the template material. All of that information does come in the embossing starter kit. So when I'm ready, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to press start. It's finished cutting, I'm just going to unload the mat, and I can go ahead and I can remove the excess that we don't need from the template. And you'll see that the template, I want to be gentle because I certainly don't want to rip it, but the template should come away from that middle tack mat. That's one of the reasons we're using that mat instead of the standard mat. If you have any little stray bits that are left in here, you just simply give them a little yank or a shake and they should come out pretty easily. Then I'm going to want to go ahead, once I have all those bits and pieces out and my templates together, I'm going to want to go ahead and fold it on the center fold line that exists right there. It's a perf line that was actually cut while you were cutting it, and this is our template, right, which is folded in half. Now, I need to go ahead and I need to clean my mat with all these little pieces. And people always say, what's the best way to do that? I think it's pretty easy if you just bend and lift. You can also, of course, use your plastic spatula and just, you know, springy them up in the air and to get rid of them. But this is just going to take me a minute, and I'm going to go ahead and clean off this mat. Now that my template is cut and my mat is clean, I'm ready to go back to the machine. So you can see here that it says finish cutting, so I'm going to go ahead and set OK. And we're going to select the next operation. So we don't want to cut it again, that's fine. We're finished creating the template. So it's okay to delete everything, absolutely. So we say OK. Now, we've done step 1, created the template. So if you wanted to emboss this design again, you wouldn't have to do step 1 again. That templates are completely reusable. Instead, we're going to go to step 2, which is embossing. So I'm going to click on that, and yes, it's okay to delete all the editing patterns. Okay, so again, it's giving me the instructions of exactly what I need to do, and it's telling me exactly where I need to have it. So I'm going to do what it's saying, which is essentially what the picture shows, which is to put the template onto the mat with the bottom crease along the bottom edge. Remember that there is no top or bottom of your mat, so you can just go ahead and you want to put it down on one edge so that the fold is right there along that edge, and you can see that. When I unfold it, this part isn't on the sticky and the other part is on the sticky. So once I'm sure that that template's adhered, I'm okay to say next. And then I'm going to follow the on-screen instructions once again. Put the material to be embossed between the folded template and determine the position of the patterns, leaving a space of at least 1/8 of an inch. Now, luckily what they've done is there's actually a second line which your machine has cut for you, which shows you that 1/8 inch gap. But it is really important that you make sure that the material doesn't go all the way into the fold, but it actually sits just above it. So you can see all these little perforation marks that we've done. And what I want to make sure is that my paper is at least on that line. It can be further away from it. It just can't be any closer. I don't want it to actually go into the fold. That's like a warning line. And then when I close it, there's another set of perforations here, and I can see the color difference through here to make sure that my paper is properly placed. So once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and say next. And now the instruction is to unfold the template and to make sure that your material is affixed. So it's possible, because a lot of this material is on top of the template, that it's not sticking. So you can use tape to go ahead and hold that down a little bit better. I would not recommend using like clear tape. I would definitely use, this is artist tape or a masking tape or something like that. And you don't want to use a ton of tape. You just want to use a little piece here and there to really make sure that everything is stable and steady and that this isn't going to come flipping up at any point, that enough of it is adhered down that it's going to be okay. And once you're done, you can go ahead and you can say next. And you'll see that you need to use a scanning support sheet in order to cover the template. So you can see I already have a piece of scanning support sheet cut, but it's really not large enough. So I'm going to go ahead, and I have some remainder. This does always come 12 by 12, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut a piece that looks like it's going to be big enough to cover my area. Now what this is really for is to temporarily hold everything down so that the scanner doesn't accidentally pull it up. So you just need to make sure that you cover the template area with it. And once that's done and it's held down, then I'm ready to go ahead to the next step. So it's going to go ahead and it's going to tell me to load it in, which is exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go ahead and open the dust cover, and I'm going to load in my mat, and I'm going to press that load button. And then as soon as that light turns green, I'm ready to go ahead and press start and to scan it in. So now on screen, it's going to ask me to frame the image to be embossed. And I'm going to go ahead and frame the image. You don't need to frame it in too close. You just need to basically generally catch that area. Then you hit preview and see if anything changes. And since it looks pretty much the same and it all looks good, I'm going to go ahead and say OK. So now, after it finishes processing the area it needs to emboss, it's going to ask you if it's okay to emboss this pattern. You are going to say, okay, yes, that is the pattern that I want. And again, it will give you instructions, which is without unloading the mat, you need to remove that cover sheet. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remove this. And I like to start in the area where the paper is, and then just very carefully, you want to go ahead and pull it off. This is a very low tack adhesive, so it should be fine. And once you have that off, you can go ahead and you can replace it onto the green sheet that it came on. And when that's done, you're going to flop this open. Now I need to go ahead and replace the blade with the embossing tool. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Always with the brother logo facing you, lock it down. So I'm going to go ahead and say next. And now I'm going to go ahead and adjust my settings just to make sure that I'm all set. And you can see that the emboss speed of 2 and emboss pressure of 4, that's totally fine for all of this. So I'm going to say OK, and I'm going to hit emboss. And it's going to ask me to select my tool, and a 1.5 millimeter tool is what I'm using. I could adjust it if I was using the other tool. And when I'm done, I'll say OK, and off we go. So now I can either choose finish emboss, or if I want a deeper emboss, I can say emboss again. So we're going to finish the emboss, and it's okay to delete it. And that means I'm just ready to unload my mat, and now I'm ready to remove my paper. You can use the metal spatula tool if you need to get under the tape or anything like that. Sometimes that's a little bit easier. So once I've gone ahead and gotten that loose, then I can simply remove my tape from it, and I can decide whether I want my image to be embossed, meaning raised or towards me, or whether I want it to be debossed. So you can see the embossing here where the design comes towards you looks really, really cool. And if I flip it to the other side, then you'll see the debossing, which also looks super cool. So it's not a right or wrong, it's just whether you like debossing or embossing. Either way, I created some really super cool embossing on my cardstock, and I have a template that I can use over and over again. So thanks so much for watching this video all about region embossing. If you're curious about line embossing, be sure to check out that video. And as always, you can find it and lots of other tips, tricks, and tutorials at balzerdesigns.com or on the ScanNCut website at scanncut.com.